Hey everybody, how's it going? And welcome back to episode 4 of Battle Breakdowns. And in this video, I'm going to be going over my new step strat and why I changed strats and basically did a 180. So what I used to do on steps is I would go 1, 2, 3 line. We would push down the 2, and then we would come in on the high side on about the 3 line and occupy this and try and take out the enemy on the K line. And as you can see, we are not going anywhere near there. So, as a caller, because this is sort of turning into a battle breakdown, but also sort of a lesson for each one that I have found through my own mistakes. No matter how good your call is, eventually it's not going to work. Some last longer than others, and some don't last very long at all, and some we've been using for 2 years. So, why did I change this call? The enemies started to predict. It's very common for teams to go 1, 2, 3 line here. Lots of chieftains, lots of super heavies. And the enemy usually just sets up a huge crossfire. So what I determined is that if that's not going to work, because what I was doing is I was forcing it, is that instead of coming this way, I know the enemies are going to be looking the wrong way. So I'm going to do what I call banging pots and pans, where you have 2 tanks over there and make a big racket, trying to draw attention, while the other team comes up the other side. So here, I know that a lot of their team is going to be over on the Juliet Kilo 4-5 line. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hard push the other side. We're going to have chieftains go up the high side who can cover those 277s, and the 277s are going to make a rush for Kilo 0. Now RPW there is in a 277, the only 277 on our team, so I'm going to tell him to hold up. Now this Manicore has spotted us. So let's take a look here. We did not even inspect the lineup. So right now I see that they have a lot of chieftains and a lot of S-Conks. And what this screams to me, again, is Juliet Kilo 4-5. Sometimes enemies will bring 2 Sturbs and they can sit up here. However, how many tanks do we have over here? Let's count. 1, 2, 3 chieftains. 1, myself, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. IS-7s and 277s. That's half the team, and we have a chieftain in the back for support who can easily rotate back. And we have an IS-7 who's creeping up the middle. So let's look at everybody's role as we push in, because this is where we hit contact, and this is where placement is the most important. What are the role of these 3 chieftains up here? Because you have 15 vehicles, you need to use every single tank. These chieftains need to cover. They have the high ground, so they need to cover the right flank. So chieftains like to sit in here, and again, this mini-map is blown up, so you can see my mouse. Chieftains like to sit in here, but these 3 can get crossfire. Now, why not just stick 8 tanks up there? And that's because it's a delicate balance with calling. Just one tank that's out of place, it's not doing its job, or that's in the wrong location, can screw everything up. So the main goal here, the main focus, is to get to Kilo 0 for this call. So, I have chosen a specific lineup. I called for 2 IS-7s. Now, unfortunately, a lot of my IS-7s are not running the lineup or the loadout that I prefer. Let's look at my health, or even better, Shadow Warrior's health right here. 2,780 health. That is just behind the E100, or the Type 5. I believe it's the 4th highest HP you can get on a heavy tank, or any tank in this game, in an IS-7. And it has the speed, and I believe I've spoken about this before. So we've got an IS-7 over here with 2640, 2430, 2400. So I push for IS-7s to have turbo hardening rammers. So you get the speed, you get the raw DPM, and you get those hit points. Now, why is health so important? Let's look at what's in front of us. And I apologize, I've paused this for quite a long time. We have to drive through enemy fire, because these S-Conks are going to turn around and make it all the way back here. Now, while we're covered by hills, there's about 3 to 4 openings where we can get shot. So we need those hit points. Let's take a look at the one chieftain in the back. This chieftain pins down anything on the high side for the most part. If they poke over, these chieftains up here may not be able to get shots because they might be having to focus on stuff from their right. IS-7 down the middle. This is great for getting cross shots in the middle here, as well as the IS-7 has great spotting. So if you notice, we only took 1 light, and I kind of skipped over him. We often take 2 lights here, but our intention is to close the gap immediately. if you do not intend on dragging a game out or taking long-range shots, you should not be bringing 2 EBR. You close the gap, you can use another vehicle, such as a heavy or medium, to spot wherever else you need spotted, and then let the EBR just do the mop-up. If you don't bring any EBRs, you're not going to have anything to flush theirs out who might be capping or anything like that. So it's usually good to bring at least one. The AMXs over there, they're quick heavies, but they're not poorly armored either. They have better armor than the IS-7 and the 277 and the Chieftain. They're the heaviest tanks we have. So they're what I call the speed bump. They're there to deter the enemy from coming over there, and if they want to come over there, they're going to put up one hell of a fight and drag several tanks out of the match. And we'll see that here as well. So let's keep going. Now I'm going to drop the arc. Now, let's take a look here. Let's get rid of that. You can notice the direction I'm driving. People have a lot of tendency to curve. Let's look at my mouse here. To curve around this way to try and get shots or engage the chieftains rather than letting their turret take the course. Obviously, turning with your vehicle improves turret rotation. You get the armor face towards you. However, we have 7 vehicles who are about to come over here, and our goal is not to kill these vehicles. That's not a side business, but it's a secondary goal. We need to get to Kilo 1 so that we can have full map control and completely encircle the enemy. So if everybody here puts a shot or 2 into these vehicles as we drive by, we will kill them. And you can see RPW immediately starts to turn in. He does correct it, which is fantastic, but you can see the instinct is to turn in towards the enemy and get close. So fantastic discipline. You can see Shadow Warrior tending to do it as well. We need to just drive past and kill those vehicles, and that's something as a caller you're going to have to constantly remind people. Shadow Warrior is someone who I featured in my gold standard video, and he's the one running the perfect equipment loadout for the IS-7 in my opinion, and yet it's still very hard to not take your finger off the alpha key. Now let's take a look. Our chieftains pushed off the hill. Now, that wasn't called for. However, again, as a caller, allowing players to take initiative and operate in their AO is important. And by AO, I mean area of operations. So, they're not on that hill anymore, but they're still accomplishing the same goal by moving down there. As a matter of fact, they're probably doing a better job because now they're behind the hill. So, let's look at the enemy situation. We have got tanks down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 grid squares. That's over half the map. We have just a solid firing line. How many vehicles do we have over here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We have 10 vehicles on one side of the map. So if I was the enemy caller, what am I going to do? I'm immediately going to try and break out of this situation. Everybody here on the 9-0 line is trying to push out. Or is hold down, sorry. So the enemy has got to get away from that situation. Their cap is threatened. However, they're going to be shot to pieces if they don't get out. They're already a disadvantage. They may be up health, but they're down they're not actually up by anything. They're down by 2 tanks. They're down by 2,700 HP, and the most importantly, they are suffering in map position. They need to regain map position. They have a very small box here to operate in. So let's see what they do. Now, we also have the IS-7 coming up the middle, and that's going to catch anything cross. So you can see RPW and I are now going to start working this bridge. And now you can see another important call. So, I'm putting myself in the enemy caller's mind. Like I said before, what would I do here? Well, I can't push against 10 tanks. That's just not going to happen. So what am I going to do? I'm going to push, quote-unquote, speed bump. I want them to push those vehicles because that takes pressure off the 9-0 and allows us to regain map position. So I am now sending all of my chieftains back. The fast heavies here have secured this. Having 4 less tanks is not going to do any differently. We still have the IS-7 up the middle. We've got myself and RPW on the high ground. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 vehicles all ready to shoot anything that pokes out. So what I know the enemy is going to do is they're going to try and take this out and then push on. Remember, they need to expand their map control. So That's why I've placed AMX M4s over there again, because they're going to be able to take a beating, excuse me, and bide some time for the chieftains to get over there, as well as damaging those vehicles quite a bit. So we're going to speed this up, and we're just going to kind of watch this play out. Now, you can see there's the push. Now, Jedi in the middle is doing a great job of negating this chieftain's ability. They're going to drop the arty up here. Great play by them, but it's only a temporary solution. And they've taken out the 2 AMX M4s. But now we have chieftains set up. We have 4 chieftains and an EBR over there to take on what I assume are lower health vehicles. We're now going to get up here, and now we're completely safe. I'm thinking about pushing down, but I don't know how much is pushed over there. So now our chieftains are behind that ridge line. And now actually we are down 20... we were down 2,400 health. Unfortunately, this chieftain, again, the enemy makes one mistake, they're going to get punished for it. In this case, it's that chieftain. Now, Jedi is getting pushed out from the middle. But because of how many vehicles the enemy is dedicating to killing that one IS-7, we now have the overmatch. You can see the chieftains push and kill that IS-7. Now they're moving on to the S-Conch. The enemies have spread themselves out, and that allows us to get a lot of overmatches. The chieftains finish off the S-Conch, and now we're back up HP. You could see the IS-7s, 277s, being able to work their way in under the low side and really start to push underneath this enemy and regain map position. So now let's take a look. If we pause it, let's take a look here. The setup that we have is now remarkably similar to where we were before. We still have control of the 9-0 pretty solidly. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 vehicles instead of the 8 we had before. We have a 279 and an IS-7 rotating underneath. And instead of the 2 AMXs over here, the Flex Force from the 9-0 has rotated all the way around and has basically taken out 1, 2, 3, and now they're about to take out their 4th vehicle. So, the enemy, they broke out of being pushed, of being surrounded. They made it all the way up to Charlie 1 just to be pushed all the way back out. We allowed them to stretch themselves out and then punished them for it. I'm going to activate the Inspire. And now the chieftains over here are just going to start cleaning all of this stuff up. It's almost turned the other way around, if you take a look. Our main pushing force went from the 9-0 to the 1-2. It completely rotated, which was very hard to see as you looked. And I didn't really intend for it to be that way, but somehow those things work out. I'm not going to sit here and say, well, I planned that, because I didn't. The enemy half played into it, and everybody over there did their job. The AMXs damaged them enough that the chieftains were able to finish him off, and then the chieftains played together as one solid unit, was able to kill all of that as well. So unfortunately, that's going to be quite a push up. I mean, we're up 10k as I speed this up, and I'm going to start loading some HE rounds. Unfortunately, that's not going to do very well. And this leopard is coming in here. I should really shoot the leopard, but instead I'm really intent on getting an HE shell into the back of the number 4. Raptor Rick is going to finish off that leopard, and that is game. As I sling an HE round at Shadow Warrior there, which I really shouldn't be doing because we don't encourage that, so I shouldn't be doing it myself. So, main thing here, if you're going to commit to a push, and you're using heavies, sacrifice on the light tanks. Also, make sure that everybody, when you're aggressive like this, everybody needs to be involved in this. You can't half-ass these sorts of pushes. It's got to be full in. Everybody's got to know exactly what their job is, because if you noticed, we didn't stop. There was no setting up here, explaining what we're going to do. The chieftains rolled up to the top, and the heavies went straight down the 0 line. As a caller, you need to be clear and concise about your instructions, and no more than a strategy like this. If you're going to pound, make sure that everybody knows their role going into it and exactly what their goal is. You can see we had a couple of almosts with people circling around, which would have exposed them to the S-Conchs up here, but for the most part, we were fine, and we made some mistakes, but we managed to correct them. Nothing that was game-breaking. So, I hope you enjoyed this one. If you have any questions about, this battle or this strategy or anything like that, let me know, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.